I watched the jury foreman stand up to deliver the verdict that would destroy my son's life. And in that moment, I knew that every dollar of our life savings I'd burned defending him had been for nothing. But what I didn't know yet was that the slip of paper my boy would pass me in a maximum security visiting room 3 weeks later would reveal a truth so devastating it would make me question everything I thought I knew about justice, family, and the man I'd trusted more than anyone in the world. We, the jury, find the defendant, James David Brennan, guilty of first-degree murder. The words hit me like a physical blow. I heard my wife Rebecca gasp beside me, felt her body go rigid with shock. In front of us, my son, my 24-year-old son, who'd never gotten so much as a parking ticket, slumped forward in his chair. His attorney, the expensive one I'd paid $200,000 to hire, just shook his head slowly. $200,000. That was most of our retirement fund. The fund Rebecca and I had been building for 30 years. Gone in 6 months of legal fees, expert witnesses, private investigators. All of it poured into defending James against a murder charge I knew in my bones he couldn't have committed. But the jury disagreed. I looked at them as they were polled. 12 faces, most of them avoiding eye contact with James. One woman was crying. A man in the back row looked satisfied, like justice had been served. But what justice? My son wasn't a killer. He was a good kid. Graduated college, had a decent job as a software developer, volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. The crime they'd convicted him of? Killing his coworker, a man named Trevor Walsh, during what the prosecution claimed was a fight over a promotion. They said James had followed Trevor into the parking garage after work, confronted him, and when the argument escalated, had hit him over the head with a tire iron. Trevor had died 3 hours later in the hospital without regaining consciousness. The evidence against James was circumstantial but damning. His fingerprints were on the tire iron, which he'd explained by saying it was from his own car and had been missing for a week. Security footage showed him entering the parking garage 2 minutes after Trevor. His jacket had trace amounts of Trevor's liquids on it, microscopic amounts that the defense argued could have transferred during his attempts to help Trevor after finding him injured, but the prosecution had woven it all into a narrative that clearly convinced the jury. Motive, the promotion, opportunity, being in the garage at the right time, physical evidence, fingerprints, and liquids. It looked bad. I understood that. But I knew my son. Knew him in a way no jury could. And the James I knew was not capable of murder. Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to say before sentencing? Judge Morrison asked. James stood slowly. I didn't do this. I swear on my life I didn't kill Trevor. He was my friend. I found him dying and tried to help. Someone is setting me up, and I'm begging you to keep investigating. The real killer is still out there. His voice cracked on the last words. The judge's expression didn't change. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. Bailiff, remand the defendant into custody. I watched them handcuff my son. Watched them lead him away. He looked back at me once, and the fear in his eyes nearly broke me. Rebecca grabbed my arm. We need to appeal. There has to be an appeal process. An appeal costs money, I said quietly. Money we don't have anymore. Then we'll get a loan, mortgage the house. We already did that, to pay for the defense. Her face went white. You mortgaged our house? Without telling me? I had to. We were running out of funds, and the trial wasn't over. I thought... You thought what? That you could just bet our entire future on this? John, he was convicted. The jury found him guilty. Maybe we need to accept that. Accept what? That our son is a murderer. I won't accept that. I can't. But we've lost everything. Our savings, our house, and for what? He's still going to prison. People were staring at us. We were making a scene in the courthouse hallway. I grabbed Rebecca's elbow and steered her toward a quieter corner. I know this is hard, I said. But James is innocent. I know he is. How? How do you know? Because he's your son? That's not evidence, John. That's just blind faith. And that blind faith has bankrupted us. So what are you saying? We should have let him go to prison with a public defender who handles 50 cases at once? I'm saying maybe we should have considered that he might actually be guilty. Maybe we should have listened when people told us the evidence was overwhelming. But no, you had to keep pushing, keep spending, keep believing in something that anyone with eyes could see wasn't true. He's our son, and I'm your wife, or I was. But you made this choice without me. You mortgaged our house without telling me. You spent money we didn't have. You ruined our future to defend someone who just got convicted anyway. Do you understand what you've done? I stared at her. At the woman I'd been married to for 28 years. At the mother of my child. And I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. resentment. Deep, corrosive resentment. I did what any father would do, I said. No, you did what a fool would do, and I can't forgive you for it. She walked away. Just turned and walked down the courthouse hallway without looking back. I stood there watching her go, understanding on some level that my marriage had just ended, but unable to process it because my brain was still stuck on the image of my son being led away in handcuffs. I went home that night to an empty house. Rebecca had packed a bag and left a note saying she was staying with her sister and would be in touch through her lawyer. Her lawyer. We were getting divorced. I sat in the living room of the house I'd mortgaged and apparently was about to lose, and I cried for the first time since my father died 15 years ago. Cried for my son, for my marriage, for the life that had been completely destroyed in the span of 6 months. The next morning, I woke up on the couch where I'd passed out around 3 a.m. My phone had 17 missed calls. 14 were from Rebecca's sister calling to yell at me. 2 were from my lawyer telling me we needed to discuss next steps. 1 was from the bank about my mortgage payment. I ignored all of them and drove to the county jail where James was being held pending sentencing. The visiting room at county jail smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. I sat at a metal table bolted to the floor and waited for them to bring James out. Around me, other families were having their own difficult conversations. A woman crying while talking to her son. A little girl asking her daddy when he was coming home. The whole place was a monument to broken lives. James appeared on the other side of the glass partition. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung on his frame. He'd lost weight. It had only been 18 hours since the verdict, and he'd already lost weight. He picked up the phone on his side of the partition. I picked up mine. "Hey, Dad?" "Hey, buddy. How are you holding up?" "I've been better. They're keeping me in a cell by myself because I'm new. The guards say once I get to prison after sentencing, I'll have a cellmate. That'll be fun." His attempt at humor fell flat. We both knew what prison would mean for him. A young, educated, white-collar guy going into the system for murder. He'd be a target. "We're going to appeal," I said. "I'll find a way to pay for it." "Dad, no, you've done enough. More than enough. Mom called this morning. She told me about the mortgage, about the savings, about everything." "James, she also told me she's divorcing you." I closed my eyes. "That's not your concern. Your mother and I will work things out." "Will you?" Because she sounded pretty final on the phone. She said I've ruined the family and she can't forgive either of us. "She's angry. She'll calm down." "Dad." James leaned forward, his face close to the glass. "I need you to hear me. I did not kill Trevor. I swear on Mom's life, on your life, on my own life. I didn't do this. Someone set me up, and I think I know who." My heart started beating faster. "Who?" "I can't say it here. Too many people listening. But I've been thinking about everything that happened, and there's one person who had motive, opportunity, and access to everything they'd need to frame me." "Tell me who." "I can't, not here, but I need you to do something for me. Can you still access our old storage locker? The one we rented when I moved into that first apartment? The one on Industrial Boulevard?" "I think so. We never canceled it because it was paid up for 2 years. Why?" "I need you to check locker 447. That's not our locker number, but it's at the same facility. Go after hours. Pay cash for access. Check inside." "James, what am I looking for?" "Evidence. I hid something there 6 months ago when I first started suspecting something wasn't right at work. I couldn't keep it at home or in my apartment because I was worried someone might search them, and I was right. They did search my apartment after Trevor died, but they never knew about that locker." "What kind of evidence?" A guard started walking toward us. James saw him and spoke quickly. "Documentation, photos, video. Everything you need to prove I didn't do this and show who really did. But Dad, be careful. Whoever framed me has resources. They have connections. They're dangerous." "Sir, time's up," the guard said to James. "I love you, Dad. And I'm sorry. Sorry for everything." "I love you too, son. I'll figure this out. I promise." They took him away. I sat there holding the phone to my ear even though the line was dead, watching through the glass as they led my boy back to his cell. I drove straight to the storage facility on Industrial Boulevard. It was a sprawling complex of metal buildings divided into hundreds of small units. I found the main office and explained I needed access to locker 447. "You rent that one?" the clerk asked. She was maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain. "I'm thinking about renting it. Can I take a look inside first?" "It's already rented. Sorry." "To who?" "Can't tell you that. Privacy policy." I pulled out my wallet and set 220s on the counter. I really need to see inside that locker. She looked at the money, looked at me, sighed. The cameras are broken in Sector D. That's where Ford 47 is located. If someone were to cut a lock off a locker while the cameras weren't working, there'd be no way for me to know about it. Understand? I understood. I pocketed the money, she hadn't touched it, and drove around to Sector D. Found locker 447. It had a standard padlock. I went to a hardware store, bought bolt cutters, came back after dark. The facility was quiet. Most people accessed their units during the day. I was alone as I cut through the padlock and pulled open the rolling metal door. Inside was a small space, maybe 5 feet by 5 feet. And sitting in the middle of the concrete floor was a cardboard box. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were 3 things: a laptop, a flash drive, and a folder full of documents. I took everything and drove home. Spent the next 6 hours going through it all. What I found made me physically sick. The laptop was James's old one from college. I recognized the stickers on the cover, bands he'd liked, his fraternity letters, a joke about engineers. I powered it on and found it wasn't password protected. Smart. If it fell into the wrong hands, there'd be no suggestion he was hiding anything. The desktop had a single folder labeled Work Trevor Project. Inside were dozens of files, spreadsheets, screenshots of emails, scanned documents. I started reading and quickly realized I was looking at evidence of massive fraud. Trevor Walsh hadn't just been James's coworker. He'd been the senior accountant at Morrison Financial, a mid-sized investment firm where James worked as a software developer. According to the documents James had compiled, Trevor had been embezzling from client accounts for at least 3 years. Small amounts at first, a few thousand here and there from accounts that held millions. But over time, he'd grown bolder. By the time James discovered it, Trevor was skimming $50,000 to $70,000 a month. James had documented everything methodically: bank transfers that didn't match client instructions, phantom expenses that disappeared into shell companies, altered records that covered Trevor's tracks. He'd even managed to get screenshots of Trevor's personal banking records showing deposits that corresponded with the stolen funds. But there was more. The documents also showed that Trevor hadn't been working alone. He'd had a partner, someone who helped him cover his tracks, who approved the fraudulent transactions, who made sure audits went smoothly. The partner was Daniel Morrison, the owner of Morrison Financial, the man whose company bore his name. I sat back in my chair, stunned. Daniel Morrison was one of the most respected businessmen in our city. He sat on charity boards, donated to hospitals, sponsored youth sports teams, and he'd been helping his employee embezzle millions of dollars from clients. The flash drive contained video. I plugged it in and watched. It was security footage from Morrison Financial's parking garage, the same garage where Trevor had died. But this footage was from an angle the police hadn't reviewed, a private camera that apparently James had installed himself in a corner blind spot. The timestamp showed 6:47 p.m. on the night of Trevor's passing. The video showed Trevor walking to his car. Then, 2 minutes later, someone else entered the garage. Not James. Someone else. The figure was wearing a hooded jacket and moved quickly, but I could make out enough details to see it was a man, taller than average, with a distinctive gait. The man approached Trevor from behind as Trevor opened his car door. They talked for maybe 30 seconds. Then the conversation became heated. Trevor pointed at the man, clearly angry. The man grabbed Trevor's arm. Trevor tried to pull away. The man picked up something from the ground, the tire iron that would later have James's fingerprints on it, and swung it at Trevor's head. Trevor collapsed. The man stood over him for a moment, then looked around the garage carefully. He pulled out a phone and made a call. 3 minutes later, another figure entered the garage. This one I recognized immediately. Daniel Morrison. They talked. Daniel bent down to check Trevor's pulse. Then he and the other man did something that made my hair stand on end. They repositioned the body slightly. The hooded man took off his jacket and used it to smudge away his own fingerprints from the tire iron, leaving only the underlying prints, James's prints from when he'd last used the tool from his own car trunk a week earlier. Daniel made another call. He appeared to be giving instructions. Then both men left the garage, leaving Trevor dying on the concrete. 4 minutes after they left, James appeared on the footage. I watched my son enter the garage, see Trevor on the ground, and run to him. Watched him kneel beside Trevor and try to help. Watched him pull out his phone to call 911. Watched him try to stop the bleeding with his own jacket. The video proved everything. James was innocent. He'd walked into a murder scene and tried to save a dying man. The real killers had already left. I played the video 3 more times, studying every detail. The hooded man's face was never clearly visible, but something about his build, his movements, felt familiar. I couldn't place it. The folder of documents contained even more damning evidence. Bank records showing Daniel Morrison's offshore accounts, each flush with millions of embezzled dollars. A ledger in Trevor's handwriting detailing every theft over 3 years. Emails between Daniel and Trevor discussing their operation and planning how to avoid detection. And buried at the bottom of the folder was something that explained everything. A letter from Trevor to Daniel dated 2 weeks before Trevor's passing. Daniel, I can't do this anymore. The guilt is killing me. I'm going to turn myself in and cooperate with authorities. I'm sorry. I hope you can understand. Trevor. Trevor had tried to end the scheme, had wanted to come clean, and Daniel had killed him for it. But Daniel couldn't make it look like a murder tied to the embezzlement. That would invite scrutiny into Morrison Financial's books. So he'd framed James instead, creating a motive, the promotion Trevor had just received, and planting evidence that made James look guilty. It was brilliant in its cruelty, and it had worked perfectly until now. I gathered all the evidence and put it back in the box. Then I sat in my living room trying to decide what to do with it. The obvious answer was to take it to the police, but I hesitated. The investigation had been thorough. The prosecution had been confident. They'd built what they thought was an airtight case against James. Would they even look at new evidence? Or would they dismiss it as a desperate father's attempt to free his guilty son? And there was another problem. Daniel Morrison had resources. Money, connections, lawyers. If I went public with this evidence before ensuring it would be properly handled, he might make it disappear. Might claim it was fabricated. Might use his influence to bury the truth before it ever saw daylight. I needed a strategy. Needed to be smart about this. My son's life depended on me getting this right. I called my lawyer, Alan Breslin. He'd been the one to refer me to James's trial attorney. Maybe he'd know what to do. John, how are you holding up? Alan asked when he answered. I need to see you, tonight if possible. It's about James's case. John, we talked about this. An appeal is possible but expensive, and the grounds are limited. I have new evidence. Evidence that proves James is innocent. Silence. Then, what kind of evidence? The kind I need to show you in person. Can you meet me? Come to my office. I'll wait for you. I grabbed the box and drove to Alan's office in downtown. He was waiting in his conference room, looking skeptical but curious. I showed him everything, the documents, the video, all of it. Watched his expression change from skeptical to shocked to angry as he absorbed what he was seeing. This is extraordinary, he said finally. This is proof of innocence. But John, where did you get this? Does it matter? It absolutely matters. If you obtained this illegally, it might not be admissible in court. And if you're in possession of stolen materials, James hid it before his arrest, told me where to find it. It's not stolen. It's evidence he gathered legally during his employment. He hid evidence instead of bringing it forward during his trial. He didn't know I'd need it. He gathered it months ago when he first suspected Trevor of fraud. Then Trevor died and James was arrested before he could do anything with it. He only remembered it was there after the conviction. Alan studied the video again. We need to take this to the district attorney tomorrow morning. I'll call and arrange a meeting. What if they don't believe it? They'll have to investigate. This is too significant to ignore. But John, you need to prepare yourself. Even if this proves James is innocent, getting a conviction overturned takes time. Months, maybe years. Appeals, retrials, legal challenges. James won't walk out of prison tomorrow. But eventually he will walk out? If this evidence is authenticated and holds up? Yes, eventually. And the people responsible for framing him will face consequences. What about Daniel Morrison? What about him? He's rich, powerful, connected. Will he actually face justice, or will he buy his way out of this? Alan closed the laptop. That's not for us to determine. Our job is to present the evidence and let the system work. Trust the process, John. The process convicted my innocent son. And the process will correct that mistake. Have faith. Faith. I'd had faith in James's innocence. I'd had faith in the system. I'd had faith that truth would prevail. And none of that faith had stopped my son from going to prison, or my wife from leaving me, or my life from falling apart. But I nodded anyway. Okay, tomorrow morning, we take it to the DA. I went home and didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat in my empty house holding my phone, thinking about calling Rebecca. I wanted to tell her about the evidence. Wanted her to know I'd been right, that James was innocent, that every dollar I'd spent defending him had been justified. But I didn't call, because even if I was right, it didn't change what I'd done. Didn't change that I'd made unilateral decisions that destroyed our financial security. Didn't change that I'd mortgaged our house without consulting her. Being right about James's innocence didn't make me right about how I'd handled everything else. At 6 a.m., I showered and dressed in my best suit. This was going to be the most important meeting of my life. I needed to look credible, needed to be taken seriously. Alan picked me up at 7:30. We drove to the district attorney's office in silence. District Attorney Helena Grant agreed to see us at 8. She was a severe woman in her 50s, known for being tough on crime and running a tight ship. She'd personally prosecuted James's case. We sat in her office, and I watched her face as Alan explained what we had. "You're telling me you have evidence that completely exonerates your client and implicates one of the city's most prominent businessmen in murder and fraud." Her voice was flat, unreadable. "That's exactly what we're telling you," Alan said, "and we'd like you to review it before we take it public." "Why not take it public first? The media would love a story like this." "Because we want justice, not publicity. Because we believe the system can work if given the right information. And because we wanted to give you the courtesy of reviewing it first." Helena looked at me. "Mr. Brennan, you spent your life savings defending your son. Your wife left you. You mortgaged your house, and now you're here claiming you have evidence that proves he's innocent. Do you understand why I might be skeptical? Why this might look like a desperate man manufacturing evidence?" "I understand," I said, "which is why I'm asking you to verify everything independently. Check the laptop's metadata. Authenticate the video, verify the bank records. Don't take my word for it. Do your job and investigate." She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she turned to her computer and pulled up James's case file. "Show me what you have." We spent 4 hours in Helena Grant's office. She watched the parking garage video 6 times, reviewed every document in the folder, had her digital forensics expert examine the laptop's metadata to verify the files hadn't been recently created or altered, called in her fraud specialist to review the embezzlement evidence. By noon, she'd made a decision. "This is legitimate, all of it. The video is authentic, recorded months before Trevor Walsh's passing. The documents show a clear pattern of fraud over multiple years, and the bank records directly implicate Daniel Morrison." She looked at me. "Mr. Brennan, your son should never have been convicted. He's innocent." The relief hit me like a wave. I'd been right. I'd been right about everything. "What happens now?" Alan asked. "Now I open an investigation into Daniel Morrison, and I start the process of getting James Brennan's conviction overturned. But Mr. Brennan, this doesn't happen overnight. I need to build an airtight case against Morrison. If I move too fast, if I make any mistakes, he'll walk. And he has the resources to disappear if he suspects we're coming for him." "How long will it take?" I asked. "To build the case? Maybe a month? To get James released? Possibly 6 months if everything goes smoothly." 6 months? He's in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and you want him to stay there for 6 more months? I want him exonerated completely. That requires doing this right. If I rush it, I risk making errors that Morrison's lawyers will exploit. Is that what you want?" I didn't answer. Of course it wasn't what I wanted, but I understood her point. "There's something else," Helena said. "The video shows 2 people, Daniel Morrison and another man whose face isn't visible. We need to identify the second person, the one who actually struck the fatal blow." "I've been trying to figure that out," I said. "Something about his build, his walk. It's familiar, but I can't place it. We'll work on it. In the meantime, I need you both to keep this completely confidential. If Morrison finds out we're investigating him, he'll start covering his tracks, moving money, destroying evidence, maybe even fleeing the country." "We understand," Alan said. "One more thing. Mr. Brennan, where exactly did you find this evidence?" I explained about the storage locker, about James giving me the locker number during our visit. "Was it his locker?" "No. He said he'd hidden the evidence there 6 months ago. I'm guessing he rented it under a fake name." "So you broke into someone else's storage locker and took materials from it." I saw where this was going. "I was given the locker number by my son and told the evidence was there. I retrieved it. After cutting off a lock that didn't belong to you. Are you going to charge me with breaking and entering?" Helena smiled slightly. "No, but Morrison's lawyers will try to get this evidence excluded on those grounds. We'll need to be prepared for that. Alan, work with Mr. Brennan on the story. Make sure it holds up." We left her office at 1 p.m. I felt simultaneously elated and frustrated. Elated because James's innocence would finally be proven. Frustrated because it would take months and he'd remain in prison during that time. 6 months, I said to Alan as we walked to his car. "He's been convicted of murder. Do you know what happens to convicted murderers in prison? He'll be in general population. He'll be vulnerable. I'll file for him to be kept in protective custody pending the investigation. It's not perfect, but it's something. It's not enough. John, we're winning here. The truth is coming out. James will be exonerated. You need to be patient. But patience had never been my strong suit, and the thought of my son suffering in prison for one more day when I knew he was innocent was unbearable. I drove home and called the prison to arrange another visit with James. They told me I could visit the following weekend. A week away, a week during which James would be alone, scared, and vulnerable in a maximum security prison. That night, Rebecca called. John, it's me. Hey, I heard something. From Sharon. You remember Sharon from the book club? Her husband works at the DA's office. He said you brought in some kind of evidence today. About James's case. I did? What kind of evidence? I told her everything. About the storage locker, the video, the documents. About Trevor's embezzlement and Daniel Morrison's involvement. About the DA opening an investigation. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then, so, he really is innocent. Yes, I told you he was. You were right. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. You weren't wrong to be angry about the money. I should have consulted you before mortgaging the house. I was angry because I thought you were throwing our future away to defend a guilty man. But if he's innocent, if he really is innocent, does this change things between us? I don't know. Maybe. Can we talk? In person? When? Tomorrow? I could come by the house. Okay, tomorrow. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, not sure how to feel. Part of me wanted to be angry at her for giving up on James so quickly, for leaving me when I needed her most. But another part understood. She'd been looking at the same evidence everyone else had seen, evidence that appeared to prove guilt. She'd made a rational decision based on available information, and now that the information had changed, she was reconsidering. That was fair. That was reasonable. But was it enough? Could we rebuild what had been broken? I'd worry about that later. Right now, I needed to focus on James. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at 9. She looked tired, stressed, but she hugged me when I opened the door, and that felt like progress. We sat in the kitchen, and I made coffee. So, what happens now? She asked. The DA builds a case against Morrison. Could take a month. Then they'll arrest him and start the process of overturning James's conviction, but that could take 6 more months. 6 months? He has to stay in prison for 6 more months? Unless something changes. Alan's trying to get him protective custody, but it's not guaranteed. This is insane. He's innocent. They should release him immediately. That's not how the system works. They need to be thorough. Make sure the case against Morrison is solid. If they rush it and make mistakes, Morrison walks. And James suffers in the meantime. Yes. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I owe you an apology, a big one. I gave up on him, on you. I let fear and anger cloud my judgment. You weren't wrong to be angry. I was wrong to leave, wrong to blame you for fighting for our son, wrong to doubt his innocence. She looked up at me. Can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. You reacted to an impossible situation. We both did. Can I come home? I mean, if you'll have me back. I reached across the table and took her hand. This is your home. It's always been your home. She started crying. Relief, maybe, or guilt, or exhaustion. Probably all 3. We spent the rest of the day talking. Really talking, like we hadn't done in months. About James, about the trial, about the evidence, about our fears and frustrations, about what the future might look like. We're going to lose the house, I said. Even if James is exonerated, we can't afford the mortgage payments anymore. Not with my retirement fund gone. Then we'll lose the house. It's just a building. James is our son. He's worth more than any house. You didn't feel that way 3 days ago? 3 days ago, I thought he was a murderer. Today, I know he's innocent. That changes everything. Fair point. That weekend, I visited James again. This time, Rebecca came with me. When he saw both of us on the other side of the glass, he started crying. Mom? You're here? I'm here, baby. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. It's okay. I understand. The evidence looked bad. Your father found what you hid. He took it to the DA. They're investigating Daniel Morrison. You're going to be exonerated. James looked at me. They believed it? The evidence? Every word. The DA is building a case. It'll take time, but you're going to get out of here. How much time? Maybe 6 months. I'm sorry, son. I wish it was faster. His face fell. 6 months in here. Dad, it's bad. Really bad. They have me in Gen Pop because I'm convicted. The other inmates know why I'm here. They think I'm a snitch because I worked in finance. I've been threatened twice already. My heart clenched. Alan's filing for protective custody. That'll just make it worse. Being in protective custody means I'm scared, means I'm weak. The guards tell me to keep my head down and stay quiet. But Dad, I don't know if I can survive 6 months in here. Rebecca pressed her hand against the glass. You can. You're strong. You're innocent. Hold on to that. I'm trying, but it's hard. It's so hard. We talked for the full hour we were allowed. When we left, Rebecca was crying again. We have to do something, she said. We can't just leave him in there for 6 months. What can we do? The DA won't move faster, and if we go public with the evidence, we risk Morrison getting tipped off. Then we make sure Morrison doesn't have a chance to run. We make sure he faces justice. How? She looked at me. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Together. 2 weeks after giving the evidence to the DA, I got a call from Helena Grant. We've identified the second man in the video, the one who actually killed Trevor Walsh. Who is it? His name is Kyle Preston. He's Daniel Morrison's nephew. Works as a security consultant, but his real job is being Morrison's fixer. We've connected him to 3 other situations where Morrison needed problems to disappear. He's dangerous, Mr. Brennan. Very dangerous. Have you arrested him? Not yet. We're building the case. But I wanted you to know so you can be careful. If Preston realizes we're investigating him, he might come after you or your family. You think he'd kill me? I think he's already killed at least one person, maybe more. So yes, I think he's capable of it. I thanked her and hung up, immediately called Rebecca. The DA identified the other man in the video, Daniel Morrison's nephew. She says he's dangerous and we need to be careful. Careful how? Stay aware. Watch for anyone following us. Don't go anywhere alone. Standard precautions. John, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. These people killed Trevor to protect their scheme. They framed James. They're not going to let us ruin them without fighting back. We started being careful, locked doors that we'd normally left unlocked, checked our cars before getting in, varied our routines. I even bought a baseball bat and kept it by the front door. But days turned into weeks, and nothing happened. Morrison and Preston apparently had no idea they were being investigated. Then, 5 weeks after I'd given the evidence to the DA, Helena called again. We're ready to move. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., we're arresting Daniel Morrison and Kyle Preston. I wanted you to know. Finally, thank God. There's more. We're also filing an emergency motion to vacate James's conviction. The judge will hear it tomorrow afternoon. If all goes well, James could be released by end of day. I couldn't breathe. Tomorrow? James could come home tomorrow? It's possible. Not guaranteed. The judge could request more hearings. But we have enough evidence that I'm optimistic. I called Rebecca immediately. She screamed with joy. Then we called James's lawyer, then Rebecca's sister, then everyone we knew. Our son was coming home. That night, neither of us slept. We were too excited, too nervous, too everything. At 6 a.m., I turned on the news. Nothing about the arrests yet. Checked my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for updates. At 8 a.m., Helena called. We have them. Morrison and Preston are in custody. The press conference is at 10. I wanted you and Rebecca to be there. We'll be there. The press conference was held on the steps of the courthouse. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Helena stood at a podium flanked by police officers. This morning, we arrested Daniel Morrison and Kyle Preston on charges of murder, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. These arrests are the result of a thorough investigation into the passing of Trevor Walsh, for which an innocent man was wrongly convicted. That wrong will be corrected today. She explained the evidence. The video, the documents, the embezzlement scheme, explained how Trevor had tried to come clean and had been murdered for it, explained how James had been framed. James Brennan is innocent. He was convicted based on fabricated evidence planted by the real killers. Today, we are filing to vacate his conviction and secure his immediate release. We apologize to Mr. Brennan and his family for this miscarriage of justice. Reporters shouted questions. Helena answered some, deflected others. I stood to the side with Rebecca, watching the truth finally come to light. After the press conference, we drove to the courthouse for James's hearing. The judge, same one who'd sentenced him, looked grim as she reviewed the evidence. This is extraordinary and deeply troubling. Mr. Breslin, your client's conviction is hereby vacated. All charges are dismissed. Mr. Brennan is ordered released immediately with the court's sincere apologies. James was brought into the courtroom in his orange jumpsuit. When the judge told him he was free, he collapsed, just dropped to his knees and sobbed. We ran to him, both of us, held him while he cried. He'd lost 15 pounds, had a bruise on his face he said was from another inmate, but he was free. They processed his release in an hour, gave him back his civilian clothes, his wallet, his watch, everything they'd taken when he was first arrested. He changed in a bathroom and emerged looking almost like himself again. "Let's go home," I said. We drove home in silence. James sat in the back seat staring out the window like he couldn't believe he was really free. When we pulled into the driveway, he got out slowly and just stood there looking at the house. "It's still here," he said. "I wasn't sure if it would be. We mortgaged it to pay for your defense. We're probably going to lose it, but it's here for now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything you lost because of me. You didn't do anything wrong. This wasn't your fault. I should have come forward with the evidence earlier. Should have gone to the police when I first discovered the embezzlement. Maybe if I had, Trevor would still be alive. And maybe Morrison would have killed you instead. You can't think like that. You survived. That's what matters." We went inside. Rebecca had prepared his favorite meal, pot roast with potatoes. We sat at the kitchen table like a normal family having a normal dinner. Like the last 6 months hadn't happened, but they had happened, and we were all different because of it. After dinner, James went to his old room. We'd kept it exactly as he'd left it. He closed the door, and I heard him crying. "Give him time," Rebecca said. "He's been through hell. We all have." That night, I lay in bed next to my wife and tried to feel victorious. My son was home. His innocence was proven. The real killers were in jail. We'd won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like we'd all been through a war and were now trying to figure out how to live in the aftermath. The next morning, James came downstairs looking better, more rested, more himself. "I need to tell you something," he said, "about Morrison and Preston, about why they framed me specifically." "I thought it was random." "You were convenient. It wasn't random. I was targeted. Morrison found out I was gathering evidence against him. Trevor must have warned him, so Morrison decided to kill Trevor and frame me at the same time. Solved both his problems at once." "How did he know you were gathering evidence?" "I told someone I trusted, someone who I thought was my friend, and they told Morrison." "Who?" James looked down at his hands. "That's what I need to tell you. The person I told, the person who betrayed me, is someone you know, someone you trust." "Who, James?" He met my eyes. "Alan Breslin, your lawyer." The world tilted. "What?" "Alan and Morrison have been friends for 30 years. They went to college together. Alan's the one who introduced Morrison to Trevor in the first place. He's been Morrison's attorney for his business dealings, including setting up the shell companies they use for embezzlement. When I told Alan I suspected Morrison of fraud, thinking he'd know what to do legally, he went straight to Morrison and warned him. That's not possible. Alan helped us. He's the one who took the evidence to the DA, because he had no choice. Once you had that evidence, he couldn't hide it. If he'd refused to help, you'd have gotten suspicious and gone around him. So he played along. But Dad, I'm telling you, Alan knew. He's been covering for Morrison this whole time. Do you have proof? Check his phone records, check his emails. You'll find communication with Morrison all through my trial. They were coordinating, making sure I was convicted, making sure the truth stayed buried. I sat down heavily. Alan had been my friend for 15 years. I'd trusted him completely, gone to him for advice, let him guide me through the worst period of my life. And he'd been working against me the entire time? "I need to tell the DA, I said. "Already did. I spoke with her this morning when they were processing my release. She's investigating. But Alan's clever. He'll have covered his tracks. Might be hard to prove." "Then I'll prove it myself." "Dad, be careful. If Alan realizes you're investigating him, he'll disappear just like Morrison would have if you'd given him warning. These people are dangerous." "I don't care. If Alan betrayed us, betrayed you, he needs to pay." I called Helena Grant. "Did James tell you about Alan Breslin?" "He did. I've already started looking into it." "Mr. Brennan, if Breslin was involved, we'll find out. But it's complicated. Attorney-client privilege, confidentiality rules. Even if he was coordinating with Morrison, he might be able to claim it was all legitimate legal work. He knew James was innocent and let him go to prison anyway. That can't be legal." "It's not, but proving he knew is difficult. We'll need evidence. Phone records, emails, testimony from Morrison or Preston implicating him. It'll take time." Time. Everything took time. Justice was slow. Truth was slow. Meanwhile, Alan was probably destroying evidence, preparing his defense, figuring out how to escape consequences. I couldn't let that happen. That night, I drove to Alan's office, waited in the parking lot until after midnight when I knew it would be empty. Then I picked the lock on the back door, a skill I'd learned from a YouTube video in about 10 minutes, and went inside. His office was on the 3rd floor, unlocked. I went through his file cabinets looking for anything that connected him to Morrison. Found nothing. Everything related to Morrison Financial was in proper legal files, all appearing legitimate. Then I checked his computer. It wasn't password protected. Arrogant of him, but convenient for me. I found his email and started searching. There. Emails to Morrison going back 3 years, hundreds of them. Most were innocuous legal discussion, but some were different. James knows about Trevor. He came to me with his suspicions. I told him to keep quiet while I investigated. That bought us time. Trevor's getting cold feet. We need to handle this before he does something stupid. The parking garage plan will work. Kyle knows what to do. Just make sure James's prints are already on the tire iron. James's trial is going well. The prosecution's case is strong. I made sure his defense attorney focused on the wrong things. Conviction likely. I photographed every email with my phone. Took over an hour to go through them all. By the time I finished, I had complete documentation of Alan's involvement in the conspiracy. He'd helped plan Trevor's murder. He'd ensured James would be framed. He'd sabotaged James's defense from the inside, and he'd pretended to help me afterward to make sure I didn't get suspicious. I copied all the emails to a flash drive and left the office exactly as I'd found it. Drove straight to Helena Grant's house. It was 2 a.m. I didn't care. She answered the door in a bathrobe, looking annoyed until she saw my face. "Mr. Brennan, what's wrong?" "I have evidence. Against Alan Breslin. Emails proving he was part of the conspiracy." "How did you get these emails?" "Does it matter?" "It absolutely matters. If you obtained them illegally..." "I obtained them the same way I obtained the evidence from the storage locker. I went where the evidence was and I took it. Now you have it. Do your job." She looked at the flash drive I was holding out. "If I take this, I'm accepting evidence that may have been illegally obtained. That could taint my entire case." "Then don't take it. I'll give it to the media. They'll publish it, and Alan will be destroyed regardless of whether he goes to jail." "Mr. Brennan, these people framed my son, let him go to prison for murder, ruined my marriage and my finances, destroyed my life. And you're worried about proper evidence procedures? Take the flash drive, investigate Alan, do whatever you need to do. But make sure he pays." She took the flash drive. "I'll investigate. But John, no more vigilante evidence gathering. No more breaking into offices or storage lockers. You do this by the book from now on, or you'll end up in jail yourself. Understand?" "I understand." I went home as the sun was coming up. Rebecca and James were both awake, waiting for me. "Where were you?" Rebecca demanded. "Getting justice." I told them about the emails, about Alan's betrayal, about giving everything to the DA. James looked sick. He really was behind all of it. God, I trusted him. I went to him for help, and he used everything I told him against me. He's going to pay, I promise you. And he did. 3 days later, Helena arrested Alan at his office, charged him with conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and fraud. The evidence from his emails was enough to overcome any questions about how it was obtained. Morrison and Preston both gave statements implicating Alan in exchange for reduced sentences. They told investigators Alan had been the architect of the entire plan, had suggested framing James, had coordinated every detail. Alan went to trial 6 months later. I attended every day, watched him try to defend himself, watched his lawyers argue he'd just been giving legal advice, watched the jury see through his lies. They convicted him, gave him 25 years. On the day of his sentencing, he looked at me across the courtroom, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. He was going to prison. A lawyer going to prison. He'd be destroyed. Good. He deserved worse. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. James got his job back at Morrison Financial after the company was taken over by new management. The new owners publicly apologized for what had happened and offered him a settlement, $3 million as compensation for his wrongful conviction. He tried to give me the money to pay off the mortgage and replenish our retirement. I refused. That's your money. Your compensation for what you went through. Use it to build your life. Dad, you spent everything defending me. And I'd do it again. That money is yours. Start fresh. Rebecca and I did lose the house. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments once my savings were gone. But James bought us a smaller place outright with part of his settlement, insisted on it. Said he couldn't live knowing we were homeless because we'd fought for him. The divorce never happened. Rebecca and I went to counseling instead. Worked through the anger and fear and betrayal. Remembered why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Our marriage survived, scarred but intact. Morrison and Preston both took plea deals. Morrison got 15 years, Preston got 20. Both would be eligible for parole eventually, but they'd spend significant time in prison first. The real victory, though, was watching Alan Breslin's life fall apart. His law license was revoked. His wife divorced him. His assets were seized to pay restitution. And he went to prison where he'd spend at least 15 years before being eligible for parole. I thought about visiting him there. Thought about sitting across from him in a visiting room and asking why. Why he'd betrayed us. Why he'd helped destroy an innocent young man's life. Why he'd valued money over friendship, over morality, over basic human decency. But I never did visit, because I realized I didn't actually care about his reasons. Didn't care about his justifications or rationalizations. He'd made his choices. Now he'd live with the consequences. Instead, I focused on rebuilding, on being present for my family, on appreciating what remained rather than mourning what was lost. James slowly recovered from his prison experience. The weight came back. The nightmares faded. The fear in his eyes disappeared. He started dating again, found a woman who knew his story and loved him anyway. They got engaged a year later. At the engagement party, James pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something I never told anyone." "Okay." "When I gave you that napkin with the locker number, I wasn't sure you'd follow through. I thought maybe you'd given up on me like everyone else had. But you didn't. You fought, even when it cost you everything." "You're my son. Of course I fought." "Not every father would have. Most would have believed the evidence, would have accepted the verdict, would have moved on. But you didn't. You never stopped believing in me, and I need you to know. That's why I'm alive today. Because you gave me hope when I had none." "James, let me finish. I was thinking about killing myself in prison. Before you came with the evidence, I couldn't see a way out. Couldn't imagine surviving 25 years in there. I was planning it. Had a method figured out. But then you visited and told me the truth was coming out, and I held on. I held on because you believed in me, so thank you. You didn't just save my life legally. You saved my life literally." I couldn't speak. Just pulled him into a hug and held him while tears ran down my face. Later that night, Rebecca found me sitting alone on the back porch of our new smaller house. "You okay?" she asked. "James told me he was thinking about suicide before we proved his innocence." She sat beside me. "But he didn't do it. Because of you. Because of us. You came back? You supported him at the end? That mattered too." "I almost didn't come back. I almost walked away permanently. If you hadn't found that evidence. But I did, and you did come back. And James is okay now. We all are." She leaned against me. "We lost so much. Our savings, our house, our sense of security. And we still haven't gotten it all back. Maybe never will. But we have each other. We have James. We have the truth. That's enough. Is it?" I thought about that question. Thought about what the last year had taken from us and what it had given us. The financial losses were real. The scars were real. The damage was real. But my son was free. My marriage had survived. Justice had been served. And we'd learned something important. That love meant fighting even when you couldn't win, believing even when everyone said you were wrong, and holding on even when letting go would be easier. "Yes," I said finally. "It's enough." 3 years after James's exoneration, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Daniel Morrison's wife. She'd divorced him after his arrest and moved to a different state, but was back visiting family. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything." "I do. I knew. Not everything, but enough. I knew Daniel was doing something wrong with the business. I knew Trevor was involved. I knew Daniel was hiding money, and I did nothing. I benefited from it. Bought things with stolen money. Lived a life funded by fraud. And when your son was arrested, I said nothing. I let an innocent man go to prison to protect my lifestyle." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need to say it. Need someone to know that I'm sorry. That I'll live with the guilt forever. That I know I'm complicit." I looked at this woman who'd enjoyed the fruits of her husband's crimes while an innocent man rotted in prison. Part of me wanted to rage at her. To tell her that sorry wasn't enough. That guilt wasn't sufficient. That she deserved punishment too. But another part just felt tired. Tired of anger, tired of fighting, tired of carrying rage that changed nothing and helped no one. "Okay," I said. "You're sorry. I accept that. Now you have to live with it." "That's all? You're not going to yell at me or tell me I'm a terrible person? Would that help? Would it change anything? You made your choices. You'll live with them. That's enough." She looked like she wanted to say more, but I walked away. finished my shopping, went home. That night at dinner, I told James and Rebecca about the encounter. "You should have called the DA," James said. "If she knew about the fraud, she should be charged too." "Maybe, but she's already lost everything. Her husband, her wealth, her reputation. She has to live knowing she let you suffer. That's its own punishment." "Dad, that's too generous." "No, it's just realistic. We can't punish everyone who failed to help you. We can't spend our lives seeking revenge against every person who was complicit. At some point, we have to let it go and move forward." Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time I broke into a lawyer's office at 2 a.m. to steal emails. Wisdom comes from experience, even bad experience." We laughed. It felt good to laugh about it. Felt like we'd finally processed enough of the trauma to find humor in the absurdity of what we'd been through. James's wedding was 6 months later. Beautiful ceremony, over 100 guests, everything perfect. I walked him down the aisle. He'd asked me to do that instead of his mother walking his bride. Said he wanted me there beside him because I'd stood beside him through worse. At the reception, he gave a speech. "I want to thank my parents, specifically my father, who never stopped believing in me even when everyone else did, even when the evidence said I was guilty, even when it cost him everything. Dad, you taught me what real love looks like, what real sacrifice means, what it means to fight for what's right even when you're standing alone. I hope I can be half the father to my future children that you've been to me." Everyone applauded. I tried not to cry, and failed completely. Later, Rebecca and I danced together for the first time in years. "Happy?" she asked. "Yeah, I am. Are you?" "I am. It's strange. We lost so much, but somehow we ended up with more than we started with." "How do you figure?" "We have each other, really have each other, not just going through the motions. We have James, healthy and whole. We have truth, we have justice, and we have the knowledge that when everything fell apart, we didn't. We held together. That's worth more than any house or retirement fund." She was right. We'd lost everything material and gained everything meaningful. It was a trade I'd make again if I had to. The last I heard about Alan Breslin, he was still in prison, still trying to appeal his conviction, still claiming he'd just been a lawyer doing his job. No one believed him. No one visited him. He'd spend years in a cell contemplating the choices that had led him there. And me? I spent my days working a normal job, living in a small house, enjoying a modest life with my wife and son. We weren't rich, we weren't powerful, we weren't important. But we were free, we were honest, we were together. And my son was alive, happy, and building a life with a woman who loved him. That napkin with the locker number on it? I still have it, framed on my office wall. A reminder of the moment everything changed. The moment truth began winning over lies. People sometimes ask if I regret spending all that money defending James, if I wish I'd saved it, protected it, prioritized my own financial security. I tell them the truth, I'd spend it all again in a heartbeat. Because money comes and goes, but integrity lasts forever. And knowing I fought for my son when he needed me most, that's worth more than any retirement account. Some nights I still think about that parking garage video, about Kyle Preston swinging that tire iron, about Trevor falling, about the casual cruelty of powerful people who valued money over human life. And I think about how close we came to losing, how easily truth could have stayed buried, how James could have spent 25 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But truth won. Justice prevailed. Not quickly, not easily, but eventually. And that has to be enough.